Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Alicia with Coaching with Dr. Alicia. I am a therapist, a social worker, and a college professor. And I love to bring on guests so that we could talk about anything having to do with mental health issues, relationships, families, uh, financial therapy, family therapy, all of these topics that are interesting to me and to you guys as a viewer. I want to introduce a really nice cool new colleague of mine. I'm going to call you my colleague. Her name is Dr. Brittany Henry. How about you introduce yourself?
Hello, and thank you so much, Dr. Alicia, for having me on. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I am Dr. Brittany Henry. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have my private practice, which is ACLA Consulting Solutions. And I am also contracted to do work with a variety of Native American tribes over throughout our country.
Well, thank you for that work. We were just talking about how healing a lot of the Native American tribes are concerned about and participating in, and how beautiful it is when they share some of what they learned and to the rest of us. And I kind of feel like, in terms of mental health, which is what we're going to talk about today, I do feel like getting into some indigenous populations and native information about what it means and what medicine means and how to heal
Mhm.
is so beautiful. So as two healers today online, I think it's great to talk about the topic we're going to discuss today, and that is mental health with African American men. And I just want to say that in my practice and just basically what I see online and just in my own family, I think that mental health in men is something that we do need to take some time out to talk about,
Absolutely.
because although everybody in the population has mental health issues, at any point in our lives, we may need to see a therapist and get help
Right.
with things that we're struggling with. But I find in particular, African American men have a lot on them. They
Yeah,
have a lot of,
absolutely.
yeah, a lot of pressure on them, and they have a lot on them. And so I think it's important as two therapists to sit here and have a conversation about mental health for men. And did you want to make a comment on that before I continue?
Well, I think it's incredibly important because when we look at even just the life expectancy among all the demographics in our country, African American men have the lowest life expectancy of any group in our country. And yes, of every population, Asian, African American, women, whatever it may be, they have the lowest rate of life expectancy. And that's alarming and really disturbing. And I don't think it's talked about enough. And when we also look at African American men as compared to African American women, they are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than African American women. And so there's clearly an issue with these rising rates of suicide among African American Black men. And so I think this conversation to bring about some awareness and maybe help others in the community to provide them with resources or just safe spaces is really necessary.
It is so necessary
Yeah.
because, as Black women, we need you, Black men.
Right.
We
We
need
need the
you
Black
here.
men. We
We
need
can't,
them. We
you
do.
know, contrary to what some people may think, contrary to the stereotype of Black
Yes.
women. And one of the stereotypes of Black women is this independent, I don't need no man. But I
Yeah.
don't see that in my real life. In my real
Mm-mm.
life, and the people I know, and even in my practice, like, it's like, no, the Black man is very much needed. And not
Absolutely.
only that, but Black family needs Black men to show up in a way that is helpful, in a way that is healthy, and in a way that where they can feel loved and they can in turn love us. So it's a
Mhm.
reciprocity that
Right.
is expected. And so and I think that if you get to the point where you're dealing with your pain in a
Hmm.
way where you think the only way out of it is to end your life,
Right.
that's something that's so tragic. And, therefore, we have a lot of families where African American men are missing,
They're right.
and
They're not there.
they're
Yeah.
not there. And so we definitely need you. We need
Hmm.
you. And
No,
I'm
we
just
do.
We do. And I'm just wondering, like, in your experience, what type of therapy or treatment that
Mhm.
are most effective, in particular with dealing with mental health issues with Black men?
Right. So I would say 100% anything that's trauma informed. You want clinicians that are trauma informed, because when we look at just historically what has occurred with Black men in our society in America, I mean, as you said a moment ago, we need them, but they're also very undervalued, and oftentimes they're existing in a very hostile environment. Just in our societal context. So, someone that understands historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, those types of modalities are very helpful. But also, what I find very useful too is evidence based therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very useful. But in addition to that, solution focused brief therapy, I think SFBT is very useful because it's practical, it's to the point. Dealing with men, they want to kind of be like, all right, what's the solution? How do I get out of this? Let's go. And that is very helpful because it honors their voice by identifying what they're already doing to survive. And it's helpful to help them understand I'm already resilient. I already have a lot of powerful tools that I'm utilizing. How do I highlight those and do more of them and make them more effective to continue to get to where I'm trying to go? And so, for that reason, I would say that's my personal therapeutic modality of choice would be
Yeah.
the SFBT. But again, anything evidence based, and of course, anything that's trauma informed.
I am so feeling you with all three of those modalities because,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I use. Cognitive behavioral therapy, let's just say that's just where it is.
Yeah.
That's what that was the very first treatment modality that I learned and was actually
Hmm.
used when I was studying to be a therapist. That was
Right.
what, it was emphasized. And I'm telling you, like, it's so beautiful because cognitive behavioral therapy is really taking a look at things that happen around you and paying attention to your automatic thoughts that come,
Right. Hmm.
and it's so much of that is connected to the trauma,
Right.
because if you grew up thinking that you're not worthy, if you're
Right.
if you have some trauma issues and you
Exactly.
think you're not worthy, you're going to view your family members or people who are close to you as
Hmm.
threatening,
Very much so.
is a
Hmm.
threat, and then it's questioning that. It's like, okay, this is what your automatic thoughts were. Where did that
Right.
come from? And digging into that, I think is so important. You mentioned trauma informed, and I think like you're right. So many different ways. I think Black men have it hard, much harder than us. Like even in my doctoral program and in higher education, just as an illustration, where it was not easy for me to get through
Right.
those programs, but it was
Right.
impossible for a Black man to get
Right.
through. And so I understand that, that's
Hmm.
some of the issues there. So yeah, that makes sense. And all of the attacks, like a lot of Black men are literally being attacked,
Hmm.
like
Very much.
they're in danger. And
Yeah.
so how could they not walk away from that feeling like they need a place where they can not feel the stress.
Any safe spaces.
They
They need
need
safe spaces.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely safe spaces. And I think that's so important to give that when you're in this therapeutic role so that they
Hmm.
have a place and helping them create these safe spaces in their
Right.
families. I think
Hmm.
that's like so important. I love it. And of course, solution based, that's
Yeah.
that's great with connecting because I feel
Yeah.
like Black men don't have a place to connect.
Hmm.
And not only for us as therapists, but I'm wondering how can the family and the
Hmm.
community support um support Black men as they're trying to improve their mental health? What could
Right.
our families do to help to let them know
Absolutely.
how much we love them?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the main things I would say, one of the first things is to normalize male vulnerability, and to not shame Black men for not being Superman. Yes, we love them. They're powerful. They are strong. They are resilient. But they break, they bend, they hurt, they fear, they have insecurities, just like just as us women do. And so, don't minimize if a Black man is sharing with you something that's important or concerning. Don't, well, why do you feel that way? Like, don't respond in that manner, because then it's very distancing and it's very othering and isolating. And then what's the likelihood of him opening up again? And so remembering all that they have a lot of weight on their shoulders. We do too. I'm not
Yeah.
negating what we women carry because we carry a lot, but really realizing that they go out in that world oftentimes and they're beat up. They contend with a lot of things that we don't understand and experience ourselves. And so just remembering to normalize their vulnerability. If a black man cries, he's still a man, and that's okay. And giving him space to do so. And I think also encouraging them to pursue mental health, practitioners, but especially Black male therapists. There are some Black male therapists out there. I do think, of course, you can go to any therapist, but I think especially a Black male with another Black male, there's a level of connection that they can have with the Black male therapist that even with us being Black women, we don't understand the fullness of their experience as men. And so I think it provides a space for them that they can just kind of exist in differently than if it's with us. And I think also checking in with them, not just, oh, how was your day, but, how did that make you feel? How did you experience that? What was that like for you? Um, can I support you? How can I support you? And just asking those kinds of questions so we give them language and help them develop that language to be able to say, well, this is what I need, or this is what I'm feeling or what I'm experiencing. And I'm thinking, what else would be helpful? I think too, even just checking what are their coping strategies, because I think sometimes we look at coping strategies that are actually not healthy. They're numbing,
Yeah.
activities. If we're finding, okay, like that's a lot of with the alcoholism, all different things, and a lot of times we just see that as that's just a man. But what's going on? Why does he have to numb? And starting to get to the root of those things so that we can try to help healing occur in a healthy way that's beneficial for them's whole body, and not just in that moment to kind of get away from and escape whatever that experience is that he's trying to escape from.
Oh, that is so beautiful. The first thing I wanted to comment on is, yeah, the people in your family. It's almost like, because I do a lot of couples work,
Yeah.
and I have to talk with a lot of couples. Like, how can both of you all are stressed out? How can both of you come
Right.
together
Mhm.
and be able to you lean on each other in those very
Partner.
stressful times?
Right.
Your partner is the one person that can hear what's going on with you, and you can hear what's going on with them, and
Mhm.
you're not going to be adversarial to each other. You're going
Right.
to
Right.
listen to each other and say, we're in this together. And I love to see how Black families can make that transition, especially couples, where
Mhm.
instead of fighting with each other, they can figure out and all of the tools and ways to sit down and listen to each other, because at the end of it, they all just want love from each other.
Yeah.
and,
Right.
and and Black men do in particular, and it's sometimes it is difficult for them to open up and to say, here's
Mhm.
what I need emotionally.
Right.
And you're a
Mhm.
human being like everybody else. So
Mhm.
that's so important. I really love what you're saying. And the second thing is those coping strategies, looking at healthy ways of coping. I think is so important, instead of going and drinking or
Right.
grabbing food or all of those
Mhm.
things that's not helpful. Is to look for healthy ways of exercising and,
Right.
all meditating, believe it or
Yeah, I
not,
was gonna say mindfulness.
meditating.
Yeah, exactly.
Mindfulness
Yeah.
mindfulness is so important, particularly if you have a history of trauma, which a lot of us
Yeah.
do.
Mhm.
It's being learning how to be more mindful instead of reacting to everything.
Right.
Then it just
Exactly.
everything spirals out of control. I
Mhm.
really love this conversation. Before I go into my last question, I just wanted to ask you another question about what is an interesting book that you've read recently?
Oh goodness. Ooh, there is a book. There's a couple books. There's one, a Peter Levine book called Trauma and Memory. And so it's not specific to Black men, but it is a trauma based book. And so I do find that one to be really interesting. And then, of course, Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. I feel every clinician needs to read that book and then refer back to it in your practice. But I feel like those things help you to understand how trauma impacts not just the mind, but the body and our expressions and how they come out as, reactions and behaviors. And I think it helps us to understand and normalize what it looks like to go and get help so that those types of reactions and experiences are no longer just kind of sitting so heavily on us and in us, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
love those books because they're written for anybody. It's not
Yes,
just clinicians. So
yes, of
you
course.
don't know, like it's like, this is a therapy book with all the
Right,
jargon.
right,
No,
no, true.
these Peter Levine and The Body Keeps the Score, those books, they are just written for anybody to pick
Mhm.
up and to be able to digest. And it's a book that you read more than once,
Yeah.
depending on what's going on. And I love it. I recommend to a lot of my clients to read those books
Mhm.
and it opens up a lot. So I really love that book. I also like, if I add one more, there's a book called I Don't Want to Talk About It, and it's
Mm,
by a social worker, so you know I'm partial to that.
of course.
His name is Terrence Real, and
Okay.
he did a lot of work with the men who were depressed, and he wrote a book called
Mm,
I Don't Want to Talk About It.
mm.
And he talks about men and depression, and I think it's really beautiful. He talks about this relational life that we need men need to be
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
socialized into being a little more relational, and he
Mhm.
talks about patriarchy and all that beautiful stuff. So,
Oh,
it's a really interesting book. But anyway, I'll go into the last question. Thanks for sharing your book topic.
of course.
Um, I'm just wondering, how can, Black men be encouraged even when
Mhm.
there's all this stigma and and things that are happening and feeling judged and all of that? How can we encourage Black men to seek help,
Right,
if we notice that there's some mental health issues going
right.
on? How what can we do?
I think one, leading with empathy is really important. So that it's not judgmental. There's no criticism there, and it's just leading that conversation, and with empathy, saying, you are so strong, and you have done so much work, but it's okay if you get some help outside of talking here. It's okay to get someone to talk to that is a professional, and can I help you set up maybe an appointment with someone so that way you have the opportunity just to have a conversation, and kind of minimizing that it's not so big to have therapy, just it's a conversation. You go to your medical
Mhm.
doctor, if something hurts, you go and get it checked out. You're not demonized and judged for it because you're just getting help, to make sure that things are in order. And that's what getting having a conversation with the clinician is. It's just making sure that things are in order, and what's not in order, you get the practical skills and tools to get things in order. So that way you're able to continue to move forward without those things weighing you down. And so I think leading with empathy is very important. And then again, like if you're seeing any concerning signs in a Black man that you care for in your family or a loved one or something like that, just letting them know, I'm a little concerned about you. And it's not coming from a judgmental place,
Mhm.
but just letting them know I'm concerned and I want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure that you're doing all right. And I think we need to get you a little bit more support. And I think that can be helpful. And just being very affirming. I think we always talk about our own affirmations, like I am wealthy, I am healthy, all these other things that we say to ourselves as women. But really reminding men, like you are loved, you are valuable, you are needed. And for
Mhm.
someone that is sometimes struggling with various concerns, especially if they're suicidal ideation or thoughts, oftentimes they don't think they're needed. Oftentimes they think, well, they'd be better off without me. So sometimes hearing, no, you're really needed. We need you. We
Mhm.
want you to be present with us. We want you healthy and whole. Sometimes that can be meaningful and start that conversation to get them into that, therapeutic session or whatever. And we got telehealth, so they don't have to go somewhere. They can just log onto a Zoom room or whatever it is, and go ahead and start those conversations that way too.
Yeah, I really love this because the empathy is so important because it
Hmm.
makes them feel, I mean, Black men live in a world where they don't feel like they're recognized for who and what they are. They're
Right.
basically objectified,
Hmm.
particularly if they have a lot of financial, like sometimes Black men feel like I'm only useful if I
Hmm.
have money in my
Hmm.
pocket or
Right.
so much money in the bank and I'm contributing to the family financially, and that's it. And so
Right.
it's saying, okay, but there's more to you than just that. You're not a robot.
Right.
You're not an ATM machine.
Right.
You're valuable in so many different ways, and affirming them as
Hmm.
individuals. Like, we need you, not just your paycheck. Like, we need
Right.
you in this family. And it's like we can't do it without you. So we want to make sure you have everything you need so that you can show up for everybody in the way
Right.
that you know you can become.
Mhm.
Because nothing's more sad than to have someone say, "This is who and what I am." And then when
Mhm.
you get to this high level of stress and high level of pressure, and then you crack and you become somebody that you know is
Mhm.
not you. And
Mhm.
what that does to you as a person,
Right.
like you're like, "Oh God, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed, I feel awful, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have behaved in that way, I shouldn't have said those things, I've alienated these people." When deep down
Mhm.
inside a lot of black men really do want connection.
Yeah.
They want intimacy. They want to
Mhm.
be seen and to see
Right.
and to be seen. That's
That's
what they
good.
really want.
Mhm. Me too.
And they really want that. And so I think a lot of ways they're crying out for help. And it's, it's difficult for us. So
Mhm.
oh, geez. Well, thank
Yeah.
you for this conversation. I won't keep you too much longer. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
you meeting with me. I'll have you back on so that maybe we can
Yeah.
talk about some other topics related to our community. And I hope
Mhm.
everybody enjoyed our conversation. And I just wanted to say goodbye, everybody. You want to say goodbye to everyone?
Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye bye.